It started like any other quiet evening. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across my living room as I sat there, frustrated, staring at the pages of my math textbook. I had a major exam coming up, one that could decide my future. I wasn't ready, at least not without help. That's when I got the message from my tutor, Josh. "Want to go over a few problems tonight?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. He'd always been supportive, patient, and kind. Over the past few months, he wasn't just a tutor anymore, he'd become someone I truly trusted. Josh arrived just after 7 p.m., the same calm smile on his face. He carried that worn-out backpack he always brought, filled with notes, worksheets, and his usual bottle of iced coffee. We set up at the kitchen table like we always did. I remember feeling oddly relieved having him around. He had this way of making complex things seem simple, and somehow, he always made me feel like I wasn't alone in my struggle. The session went on longer than expected, but I didn't mind. He was committed to helping me succeed. That meant a lot. By 10:30, the house was quiet. My parents were still out visiting relatives, and it was just the two of us. We both laughed when we realized how late it had gotten. I offered him some tea, and we sat for a bit just talking, nothing unusual. We'd shared countless conversations before about school, future goals, even random stuff like favorite movies and books. There was nothing strange about it. At least, that's what I thought. But then, something shifted. The tone of his voice changed, so subtly I almost missed it. He started asking more personal questions, not inappropriate, but different from usual. At first, I brushed it off as friendly curiosity, but the vibe felt heavier. I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was the way he looked at me that night, longer pauses, softer words. Or maybe it was just my imagination. I told myself I was overthinking things. Still, something about his presence began to feel off. I started to wonder if the comfort I'd grown used to had started masking something I hadn't noticed before. Was I too trusting? Had I mistaken his kindness for something else? There was a flicker of doubt, and once it lit up in my mind, I couldn't put it out. That night didn't end the way I thought it would. What started as an innocent study session slowly turned into a moment that changed everything. A moment I wasn't prepared for. A moment that made me question not just Josh's intentions, but my own instincts. I wish I had seen it coming. But the truth is, betrayal never knocks. It creeps in through the cracks of comfort, and by the time you recognize it, it's already too late. And what happened next, I never expected. Stay with me, because this story only gets harder from here. I didn't sleep much that night. Even though nothing exactly happened, I couldn't shake the strange feeling that settled over me after Josh left. I kept replaying our conversation in my head, his questions, the pauses, the way he lingered in the doorway before saying goodbye. Something had shifted, and I wasn't sure how to explain it to myself, let alone anyone else. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. He was probably just tired. Or maybe I was reading too much into things. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. The next day, everything felt different. Josh messaged me around noon like he usually did, just checking in to see how my prep was going. But even his texts felt different. More frequent, more casual, like we'd crossed into a new space. I didn't want to be rude, so I kept replying, trying to keep things focused on studying. Still, his tone made me uneasy. It was like the tutor I'd depended on was being replaced by someone I didn't fully recognize. To understand why this felt so disturbing, you need to know the full picture. When Josh first started tutoring me, I was barely holding things together. My grades were slipping, and I'd lost confidence in myself. My parents were worried and brought him in to help. From the beginning, he seemed like a blessing. He was smart, respectful, and always knew how to calm my anxiety before a big test. Slowly, I began to open up. I let my guard down. But maybe that's where I made my mistake. Because now, every memory felt tainted. every compliment he gave me, every encouraging word, was it genuine? Or was there always something more behind it? I didn't have the answers yet. But I was about to find out. A few days later, Josh asked if we could have another session, this time at the library. I agreed, hoping a public space might help ease the weirdness I'd been feeling. When we met, he acted completely normal, as if nothing had changed. He brought printed notes, helped me review tough questions, and even reminded me to take a break when I looked overwhelmed. For a moment, I started to believe I'd made it all up in my head. Maybe I'd been too paranoid. But then, right before we packed up, he said something that made my stomach twist. "You know," he said quietly, "I always look forward to these sessions, not just because of the tutoring." I froze. I didn't know how to respond, so I just smiled awkwardly and kept stacking my books. He didn't say anything else after that, but the damage was done. The unease came rushing back, heavier than before. Around the same time, my best friend Mira started noticing changes in me. I'd become more distracted, less talkative, always checking my phone. One day after class, she asked me straight up if something was going on. I wanted to tell her, but I wasn't even sure what I'd say. Josh hadn't done anything technically wrong, but the lines were starting to blur, and that was what scared me the most. Then came the unexpected twist. Mira told me she'd seen Josh at a cafe, sitting with another student from our school. A younger girl. The way she described it, how close they sat, how he leaned in when he spoke, it sounded way too familiar. It was like hearing my own story from the outside. And that's when it hit me. Maybe I wasn't the only one. And maybe this went deeper than I ever imagined. After what Mira told me, I couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. Something was seriously wrong. I started paying closer attention, reading back old messages, remembering certain things Josh had said during our sessions. Compliments that once felt harmless now echoed with a different meaning. Encouragement that used to lift me up now felt calculated. And that moment he stayed late at my house. I replayed it over and over, questioning every word, every look. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the more I looked, the more patterns I noticed. I found out that Josh had been tutoring several girls from nearby schools, always students who were struggling, just like I was. Always friendly, always supportive. It felt like he knew exactly who to target. That thought alone sent chills through me. I didn't say anything to my parents yet. I didn't know how. I was scared they'd either brush it off or make it worse. So I turned to Mira. Together, we started looking into it quietly, talking to other students, comparing timelines, even going through social media. That's when things got darker. One girl mentioned she stopped tutoring with him after he got weird. Another said he messaged her late at night asking personal questions. Nothing concrete enough to call out, but enough to leave a trail. A trail that suddenly didn't feel so invisible anymore. Then one night, Josh showed up at my front door unexpectedly. No tutoring session planned, no reason to be there. Just standing there, smiling, like everything was fine. My parents were upstairs. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Mira, texting me, he just messaged me too. Something feels off. My heart was pounding. And right then, I knew. Whatever this was, it was about to reach its breaking point. I stood frozen at the door, Josh's unexpected visit setting off every alarm inside me. He gave a casual excuse, said he was just in the neighborhood and thought he'd drop by to see if I needed last-minute help. But there was no session scheduled, and we'd never met like this before. I tried to stay calm, nodded politely, and told him my parents were just coming downstairs. That seemed to make him hesitate. He forced a smile, said he'd text me later, and walked away. But his eyes lingered just a second too long. As soon as I shut the door, I locked it, heart racing. I ran upstairs, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was panicking. Myra's text kept flashing in my mind. Why was he messaging both of us at the same time? What was he trying to do? I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking, what if he wasn't just pushing boundaries? What if there was something bigger I wasn't seeing? The next day at school, Mira came up to me looking pale. She'd done some digging on an old tutoring forum and found a post, anonymous, vague, but disturbingly familiar. A girl had written about a private tutor who became too involved, who used emotional support as a way to get close. She didn't name him, but the details lined up with everything we knew. The post was from 2 years ago, from a completely different city. We realized Josh had moved here just last year. My stomach dropped. We weren't the first. And we might not be the last. But just when we thought we had figured it out, another twist hit us. Josh didn't show up for our next session. No text, no call. Just silence. And then, out of nowhere, Myra's messages stopped delivering. Her phone was suddenly unreachable. Her parents said she had left for her cousin's place, but something didn't feel right. She hadn't told me anything about going away. And she never just vanished without telling me. The silence was louder than anything. Now, it wasn't just about tutoring. It wasn't just about blurred lines or uneasy feelings. It felt like something else was in motion, something bigger, something dangerous. And suddenly, I realized I was completely alone. The next morning, I couldn't sit still. Mira still wasn't replying. I called her again, and again, no answer. Something felt terribly wrong. I decided to go to her house. Her mom opened the door, smiling politely, but her words felt off. "She's with her cousin for a few days, sweetie." "You didn't know?" "No, I didn't." I forced a nod, pretending it made sense, but as I turned to leave, I caught something through the hallway mirror. Myra's backpack. The one she never traveled without. It was on the floor, right by the stairs. My heart skipped. I didn't say anything, just left. But I knew I had to do something. I rushed home, grabbed my laptop, and opened every conversation, every file, every note I had from Josh. For the first time, I stopped focusing on his words, and started looking at his patterns. And that's when I noticed it. In the metadata of a shared Google Doc, his original account name was different. It wasn't Josh. It was something else. I searched the name, and my screen went cold. An old school newsletter from 3 years ago. A volunteer tutor named Jacob M. had suddenly left after several complaints from students, none confirmed, none followed up. No charges. Just silence. And now, he was here. With a different name. A clean slate. My hands shook as I printed everything. I told my parents everything, every message, every meeting, every moment I had dismissed as maybe nothing. For the first time, they listened. They contacted the school. The principal quietly got in touch with other students. The picture became clearer and worse. Mira wasn't the only one who'd gone silent. Another girl had suddenly dropped tutoring. Another had blocked him without explanation. By evening, the school had already reported him. Police were involved. Jacob disappeared again. Just like before. But the final twist came days later. I got a message from an unknown number. It was short. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just didn't know how to stop." That was it. No name. No explanation. Just a haunting sentence that left me with more questions than answers. The storm was over, but the scars stayed. And in the end, the real betrayal wasn't just what he did. It was how long I ignored the signs, thinking I was safe. The days that followed were heavy. I kept going over everything in my head, what signs I missed, what I could have done differently, and most of all, how someone I trusted so deeply could turn out to be someone I didn't even know. The school launched a quiet investigation, and though no official statement was released, word spread. Other girls came forward, some with similar stories, some just thankful that someone finally spoke up. There was a quiet strength in knowing I wasn't alone. Mira came back a week later. She had gone to her aunt's after a heated argument with her parents about Josh. She hadn't told anyone because she felt confused and scared. When we finally talked, we cried. Not just because of what happened, but because we both knew how close we came to getting pulled in even deeper. Our friendship grew stronger after that. We supported each other through the awkward stares at school, the whispers in the hallway, and even the moments of guilt that still crept in late at night. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And that mattered. I also started seeing a counselor. At first, I didn't think I needed it. But talking helped. It helped me realize that what happened wasn't my fault. It helped me understand the difference between healthy mentorship and emotional manipulation. That line is thin and dangerous when crossed. Josh, or Jacob, was never found again. Maybe he moved on to another place. Maybe he's out there pretending to be someone else. That thought used to haunt me. But now, it drives me to speak up. To share this true betrayal story so others can recognize the red flags. Because emotional abuse doesn't always scream. Sometimes it shows up in kindness, in patience, in small compliments that grow into something more controlling. My tutor stayed late to help, but what unfolded after changed everything. If you're ever in a situation where something feels wrong, even if you can't explain it, trust that feeling. Speak up. Ask questions. Protect your space. Because sometimes, the most dangerous betrayal comes wearing a smile. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is believe your own instincts.